When you think about products like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, other forms of social media, or communication tools that we use nowadays every day, like Zoom, Teams, emails, even going back to a traditional phone, all of these products have a very interesting feature in common. The value to one user increases with the number of other users, with the number of consumers that are using that product. Think about that traditional analog phone. If you were the only owner in the world of that phone, it would not be very valuable to you. Unless it was a smartphone and had some standalone value, then it would actually be of no use at all, because who would you call? Now, for smartphones and operating systems, their value increases with the number of users, but also with the number and quality of the different complementary products, like the different apps. So when the value of a product or service increases with the number of other users, or depends on complementary products, economists say that these goods and services exhibit network effects. Network effects are almost everywhere. I mentioned to you social media and communication tools, but think about languages. Traditional languages, like English, French, and German. You may choose to learn a foreign language based on the number of users, number of people you can communicate with. Thinking about programming language, the same logic applies. You may want to learn a programming language based on that user base, on that network, because then this will impact the number of people you can collaborate with. Think about software. The market power of Microsoft really depends on the number of users that can use it and collaborate. It even goes for hardware. Think about credit cards. In some country, Visa is not accepted but MasterCard, making Visa less valuable. Think about exchanges and marketplaces. Think about platforms like Uber and Airbnb. So in these platforms, we have two types of users. For instance, with Uber, we have drivers and passengers. So for drivers, Uber platform is more valuable the more passengers are using it. And for us as passengers, Uber is more valuable the more drivers there are. Network industries constitute a very large and growing share of the global economy. And they also come with distinctive management challenges and strategic and policy implications. So let's start with the adoption of a good with network effects. So with any other traditional good, adoption typically follows that kind of an S-shaped curve. And this is because users, potential consumers, are typically unsure about the quality and the usefulness of that good. But then when we talk about products with network externalities, this S-shaped pattern is even more pronounced. Because in addition to that initial and traditional uncertainty about the quality and usefulness of that good, potential consumers are uncertain about that number of other users that will also adopt the product. It may be very hard to build that critical mass to tip the market towards a mass adoption. Economists use models and diagrams to simplify, analyze, and understand complex phenomena. Here we will take a look at a highly unusual demand curve. On one hand, demand is downward sloping. This is to say that there is a negative relationship between price and quantity demanded. But this also means that the willingness to pay is decreasing in the number of users. But on the other hand, that willingness to pay is increasing in the expected number of users. This captures that network externalities. The good, the product or service is more valuable, and hence the users are willing to pay more the higher the expected sales. Because of these opposing effects, we get a very interesting quadratic relationship between quantity demanded, willingness to pay, and the number of users, the size of the network. What is interesting about this is that unlike a typical situation when we have supply and demand and their intersection gives us the single market equilibrium, here we have multiple equilibria. In this case, we have 3, and only 2 of them are stable. The stable outcomes are associated with zero adoption and very high adoption. And this is to say that there is not much middle ground. There is no prize for a second place. These are the so-called tippy markets, where the winner takes all or almost all. The tipping point is that point at which a trend reaches a level after which it becomes irreversible. It starts gaining momentum. But networks can stall, even with very strong network effects. This is called the so-called penguin problem. So in new markets with new products and services, users are uncertain about this long-term demand. But when we have network effects in addition to the typical uncertainty, users cannot communicate their expectations, they cannot coordinate their behavior. So no one moves unless everyone moves. Very much like penguins, afraid to be the first one to dive for food. Equally interestingly, the best product or service does not necessarily win, and it may be very hard to replace an inferior standard. Take a look at your keyboard if you can, at your phone, tablet or laptop. Take a look at the upper left corner, the first 5 keys. The chances are you're using a QWERTY keyboard. That layout was designed in 1870s. Yes, 1870s. It was actually designed to slow down the typing to prevent the old typewriters from jamming. Well, whatever the reason for the design, it is unlikely that something designed over 150 years ago is still optimal for us to use given all of the different technological advances. So why are we still using this layout? Well, if we were to switch, we would all need to switch because we would like to learn the new layout and use it at work, school, at home, in all kinds of different environments. So in addition to that individual switching cost, the need to type, to learn how to type on a different layout, there would also be this collective switching cost. And this is exactly the strength and the story of network effects. Network effects means that this layout is valuable because it is widely used. Network effects also mean that there is a very high collective switching cost and lock-in. Moreover, the fact that potential consumers are making their decisions based on the expected number of users, not just the actual size of the network, tells us that expectations matter. Those expected to win will likely win. So another strategy dimension here is expectations management. The fact that we are surrounded by these products and services, the fact that we use them in our daily lives, tells us that they are and will continue to be a central part of the economic landscape. The network game is a winner-takes-all or winner-takes-most game. There is not much of a prize for a second place. This is why these markets experience a fierce early competition. Firms are very aggressive in the early stages precisely because of this tipping point. The best product or service does not necessarily win. And the fact that this is a winner-take-all game, it means that losers take nothing. So mistakes in network industries can be fatal. So then how should a firm with a network-based business navigate these extraordinary economics? What are the winning strategies?